Alright, so let's go ahead and add some physical texture to our zombie. Well, to do this, first I'm going to hit my sculpt, and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to choose these little rock gravel texture. Because with this, I can go ahead and zoom in here, and I'll always start by just doing a quick test over the flat part of the head. But I can put it on here, zoom in just a little bit, and I can see this kind of texture being put onto it. Now, I have a really low strength right now. So if I undo it just a couple times, and I set this to something much higher, which in this case, even a 1, we'll see kind of how it's laying out the design of that gravel. Well, I have a few other things on here. First off, I got some rotations, scales, and strengths in addition to everything else. But I'm also going to increase my stamp spacing. This lets me move a little bit farther before I put the next drop on. Well, if I want something more intense, I can do something like this. While for the same similar thing, that original size of the 0.05 is real good to put on here if we need something just for more of a skin-like texture. And we can see that as I kind of just put it on here, we really have a whole lot of benefit from just doing even such a simple little texture, just so it's not completely flat. For this, I am going to increase it though, not to a full 1, but to about a 0.25. Because that'll give me a good combination of strength to go in there, as well as subtle enough detail. And with this, just a simple kind of going over everything real quick is going to go a long way to help me through doing everything else just to kind of fill in these textures. And you can see, once you start flooding it over everything, it changes drastically just the kind of quality, effect, and overall appearance of our creature. That said, I'm going to go ahead and lock the teeth and eyes and continue just hitting around the neck, back of the neck, and just kind of give a overall decent coverage. And overall, I like that. It gives a really much more heavily decayed look to everything, as well as roughens up the skin itself. So from here, I'm going to go to the Layers tab. And anything else I want to do after this kind of initial just base skin texture layer, I'm going to go ahead and just say New Layer, and I can name it whatever change I want to do. So I'm going to name this one Vein, because I'm going to swap over to this. So this one is going to work very similar to what we had before, but as I put it in, you can see the little vein-like marks start showing up. Now for something like this, first off, I'd want way more spacing just so I can kind of blend it and put everything together a little bit easier. Now, if there's too much going on, we can obviously just take the strength to 0 or erase everything we did with this layer. But I personally like the veiny look. But it might just be lost a little bit too much. So I'm going to pull my strength down just so I have a little bit of that in there without having it flood and just cause too much. So I'm going to put it at about an 80% from where I was with it. Okay. Well, other kind of physical textures we can do. We can come over to the lips, add a new layer. I'll just name it lip. And I'll grab just some of these other little tools and just kind of add. I'm going to undo this actually. I'm going to turn off randomize because I want a little bit more control with it. Just kind of onto those gums, onto the lips, add a little bit different effect. Alright, with that on there, I'll go ahead and pull it back so it's not quite so deformed, and in this case, not a good way. And let's get up back to 6, just so we can see everything with way more detail. And overall, yeah, I like what I got going on. So, let's add a little bit more. Next up, let's add a new layer. And actually, I'm going to name this one, quote unquote, battle. No, I'll name it Bite Wound. Because if it's a zombie, it must have been bit somewhere. So what I'm going to do is turn off the stamp image, and with the bite wound, I'm going to use my basic sculpt, and I'm just going to kind of come in here and make a random little pattern about like this. Now I don't care for that. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger with the brush. I'm actually going to undo one more time and turn off my mirror, because I'm just going to want this on the one side. So I'm going to do it like this. I'm actually going to choose freeze, and I'm going to freeze kind of the shape that I want to cut into, about like that. Which will let me go ahead and freeze everything else around it, being a little bit careful on the first additional pass. And a little bit bigger, and I can be a little bit more clumsy, just kind of filling up this area, just so I don't accidentally grab something I don't mean to. So this will give me a real strong place to just quickly go back to sculpt, and I can push in this shape into the head itself, which, as you see, will hold those edges pretty well. And let's pull the strength back a little bit, just to kind of pull that shape a little bit closer. Yeah, that'll be good. So with this, I'll go back to freeze. Yeah. And with freeze, I'll go ahead and hold Control, paint over it to unfreeze the selection. Okay. So I have my skull bite indentation, whatever you want to call it. And now, I'm going to come to pinch, small brush, and I'm going to just kind of pinch these edges a little bit just to hold the seam a little bit better. And I'm doing this just so as I make any other modifications, it'll have a lot easier time keeping this little cut in here compared to if I was doing the same thing. Let me rephrase that. It'll keep the seam in here if I do anything that's different, that isn't the same thing, so it won't deform quite as easy. So with that, I can now go ahead and kind of smooth this out just a little bit, just so I lose a little bit of this little veiny stuff, because if this is going to be where a bite was, there should be way more other details. Which, if this is a bite, and they being where it is in the head, probably we're going for some brains, right? So why don't we just make it look like there's some brains? So, with a basic brush, and I'm going to decrease my stamp spacing to almost nothing. Not a little bit too much. Let's increase it a bit more. And I'm going to pull down my strength. But I'm just kind of come up here and fill in this space with something that theoretically is going to look brain-like. And it doesn't have to be exact, doesn't have to look, you know, perfectly brainy. Because I'm going to be coming back and doing some things to it to kind of help out, but just to kind of get that first initial appearance in there. What I'm going to do to make this detail better is with Sculpt, turn on this again, turn off my stamp spacing, and I'm just kind of come here to the middle to kind of make these details a little bit cleaner by cutting into the little valleys that I left. There we go. And now we're going to get something that looks a little bit more brain-like. We're getting some good folds in here. The details and differences are getting better. There we go. So we got some brains coming out of the head. Great. Anything else I can do is going to be kind of just little things like this, where I can increase the strength and kind of just add some cuts, details, scars, kind of just whatever else I want to go through. So I can add a scar here. We'll add some marks like this to kind of show where stitches were. Maybe they were in the middle of brain surgery and things went real bad. Maybe it's just a complete monster anyway. But any other details I do are kind of going to just simply amount to doing this kind of thing. And I can even come in, and really I should be doing this on a different layer. I can kind of come in and just add some of these details wherever I just want to fill in some of the more empty and open spaces. Because doing this also is a good way to help separate the neck and the head in terms of like the skull from where everything's coming together. Okay. So overall, some good detail. Other things I can do, and this is just going to be kind of based on your own opinion, appearance, but I mean, I can even come in here, make a new layer, and I'm going to name this one Group. Because it's a zombie, so why does everything have to be perfectly symmetrical? If the body is, you know, corrupted and stuff. Perhaps, you know, half of the face is starting to just fall and kind of melt away. Why not? The loose skin around the eyebrows, why wouldn't it fall down? I mean, it doesn't have to, but, you know, why not? We can do some of these extra little things. And for the physical detail, this is just the kind of back and forth process. Because in the next step, we're going to be actually going through and doing some painting. That said, pretty easy. Paint tools, paint brush. I'm going to choose the teeth first. And because I got so much going on, it will be a little laggy, but that's overall okay. Next up, I'm going to go ahead and lock the head, unlock my teeth trees, which the one I just did actually went to the head, so that's fine. I can just rename it as I need to. But I can kind of just come in and paint over things as I need them to be. Well, I got this initial green, which is really just kind of filling and flooding in this paint color. You know, it's a zombie. They're probably not going to be pearly white, but this green will give me a good foundational color. So I'll name it Teeth Base. And now I can keep adding new layers. So there's a teeth base. Next up I'll go with teeth, let's say white, yellow. Okay, so I can't actually put the slash in there. Now, depending on the power of your computer, I'm starting to push things a little bit too strong on mine. I'll kind of come for a more pale yellow color. And I'm just going to go ahead and, yep, just like that. I'm going to flood the paint layer just to apply it to everything in that material. But I can come in here, add more layers, shrink my brush down, go to something like the airbrush if I want to even. And from an old project, I have those little speckles in there, which actually would work for this, to just kind of come through and start blending other colors. They eat brains, so maybe I'll see about adding some speckle in here. I want way more strength. And just kind of paint into the teeth to start blending, mixing, and adding different colors. So there's that. Let's add a bit more of a red. And because it's all one material that these teeth are sharing, things are going to kind of go on there a little bit rough, but we just got to make the best we can unless we wanted to do individual textures for each tooth, which isn't bad, but we don't necessarily need that. So I'll just keep adding some of these other colors in here, mixing things together. And that's pretty good for the teeth. Back to the object list. Turn those off. Let's go to the spheres. And let's paint these. Now, because of how this works, what I do to one is going to be done to the other, but it won't necessarily fill them in the same spots. So I'd probably need a second material for the other eye, but zombie, so we can bend the rules a little bit. Base color, I'll go for white mixed with a little bit of red hue, and flood the paint layer for that color. That's about right. I might make it a little bit more red. A little bit too much. Let's try this. Or are you going to be too pink? It's a bit pink. I'll go back to, no, we'll do it simple red. And paint brush. And let's mix some colors. Circle. I'll paint just a little circle in there. See, there it is over there. Awesome. Okay. New color. Let's give it some real dark red eyes. So instead of just going again, shrink the brush down. It's going to fill around gently into that area. Okay, let's keep going. I'll come back to black. Smaller brush. And we'll hit that center. So that eye actually came out pretty well in terms of placing. I can always just kind of choose that eye. Rotate it down. If I needed it to be seen, but whatever. Left eye will be the good eye for this. But I can add in some extra little things. So I'm going to go ahead and do some rock. Nope, don't want you. Let's go with stamp spacing, a little bit bigger brush. No, that's not really doing what I'm hoping for, so let's go back to that speckle. I can kind of fill the eye with whatever color I want, just to add a little bit more detail to it. So why not some kind of neon-y orange, just to kind of fill into... I don't care for that. Let's make it a little bit smaller. Less strength. Bigger stamp spacing. And I'll kind of just go around this eyeball just to fill in some of these little dots. Okay. Back to big brush, strength, lower distance, and I'll just kind of fill this in with different colors until I'm happy with my overall design. I can even add some, simple veins around the eye up here. Too much. Let's give some random. First I hit undo, wait for a moment for it to catch up. Random, bigger spacing, pull strength down a bit, and I can just kind of gently fade and add in some little veins around the eye. I can always say maybe this is too much, but at the same time I can say why not. The head itself, for the most part, you can paint this up however you want. Just like we saw blending with the other videos, for this we really can just kind of do whatever. Because my system is being pushed a little bit further than I thought it would, I can go skin, turn this off, and I can choose kind of whatever flesh tone I want. Light, dark, whatever. I'll make them a bit more pale for the initial. Flood the paint layer. Oops, that was definitely not what I intended to do. Okay, a little bit lighter, why not? Doesn't really matter overall. But I can kind of come in here and start just adding things I need. Well, if I want to add some of those blood vessel things, especially like around here, I can kind of paint them on around, follow these edges. Maybe some bigger as we get further away. Go for a nice pink brain. Go back to that original skin flesh color. However, add in a little bit of a pink to it. I'm going to do the ears a little bit. It's a little bit too much pink. That's a little bit better. Just kind of fill in some of these gaps. Turn off my stamp spacing for this, because now it's causing a bit of a problem. Just kind of fill that color in there. Do the same on the other side. And now we really just are at this process of painting things up the way you want to. Big things you'll want to do, well, we can kind of come into the more cavity, decrepit areas, fill it with some black, just because it's a little bit darker in there. We can blend, mix, blur some of these colors together by holding Shift. And just let things kind of blend a little more naturally as we go through some of these areas. But from here, we are truly just kind of a little strange there. That's fine. Why not blur this together? But there we have the overall concept. Now, when we're happy with the painting when we're done, because I mean, I got lips, I got gums, I got a lot of work to do on this. I can always come in and add in some of these viewport filters. Change the numbers just a bit. And even just by itself, it looks pretty good. But I can even change some of my lights with the lighting presets. Let it run for just a moment. And get some real good effects for what I want this entire thing to look like. So from here, it's just painting and blending things together the way you want. But overall, that's everything for making a zombie. That's it for this one, and I'll see you in the next one.